Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Nisha here, very happy that you're here. I am trying to catch some daylight here. And I know my background is as fancy as it normally is. Okay, so happy that you're here. I was watching on YouTube the other day a spiritual teacher, and I actually like him. He's pretty good, he's very well known, and he was doing like a channeled session, and it's not from like spirit guides. He says something about him channeling into the present, or it's kind of like a stream of consciousness kind of thing. And so anyways, he started talking about the divine masculine and the divine feminine, which I know is a big topic for a lot of people, and progress, not perfection, right? So he basically, he didn't get too much into it, but he said, just to kind of, without getting too much in the weeds, he says, simple ways of bringing divine feminine into your life. So he says, the simplest way to talk about it is that the divine masculine is the what of action. What am I doing? What's my intention behind this? What's my focus? What's my hope for an outcome? Whether or not, whatever happens to that outcome and not being attached to it either way. And he says, but the divine feminine is the counterpart to what? The divine feminine is the how. How will I move through time and space? How will I allow myself to greet those that come my way? How can I love and embrace others? How can I love and embrace others as if I'm treating others as the versions of myself that others from the past have mistreated? How can I treat others each day as a course corrective experience for all that I lack or that I experience neglect or abuse from others in the past? How can I rewrite my past by how I treat others around me, even if it's a store clerk, barista, family member? Okay. Progress, not perfection. This, first of all, he says that this is the simplest way that he can tell people to embrace their divine feminine. So if this was his opinion, if this was him expressing to people how he looks at the divine feminine for himself, that's one thing. But what he was saying was that it was not subjective. It was very objective. It was like, this was the definition, and this is how all of you people need to be taking it in as well. And my question is, how and why are these traits the purview of the divine feminine? Who created these things? Where did these things come from? Because from what I know, these divine traits are all from the perspective of the male experience, through the male gaze, throughout history, possibly, definitely through recent history. So for at least thousands of years, men were the storytellers. So men got to say what the divine masculine was. Men also got to say what the divine feminine was, because it's what they needed. And it's not even, it was also like a certain type of man who was able to create these notions, right? Secondly, the idea of the divine masculine and the divine feminine seems to be no more rooted in anything other than reproductive organs and what these reproductive organs do. So, like, you look at Shiva, for instance. He's a Shiva, a lot of times he's represented as a Shiva lingam. It's a phallus. And then, sometimes there's the Parvati part of it. And then, so like, okay, we get it. Like, men, the male form has an external reproductive organ that emits the material to create life. Okay. The female reproductive organs take it in and create life and give birth. And giving birth to me is the most he called the masculine energy the what. So the what / action / yang energy that you can have is giving birth. You're basically expunging life. So for me, it's the woman, it's the divine feminine that actually, or it's the woman that actually, with the I guess what the female body can do, that tells me the divine feminine is the one with the action-oriented energy. And yet that's not how the story is told. And like, you never hear that, right? It's like the divine feminine is always the receptacle and the divine, and it's only because of the reproductive part of who we are, which is a very small part of who we are. And so it's very limiting, and it's not even true. I think it would have a little more universal veracity if women, human women, not divine, like nothing divine, but like just like it was human men who came up with these divine masculine and feminine notions, if there were women in equal part voicing that this is their experience of what being a woman is like, and then moving it onto sacred metaphor and how they experience that sacred feminine over thousands of years throughout all these different cultures. And from a woman's perspective, not only what the divine woman feminine is, but what's the divine masculine from a historically female perspective. We don't have that. So what makes these things universal? And I understand this is just his channel and I'm making a thing of it by bringing it here, but in my eyes, this guy is like, he's, he talks about love a lot, and I know that what he says and what he does, he really means, like and he's human, like we're not perfect, right? And he could not see anything wrong in what he's saying. And in fact, like looking at the comments, men and women, from what I can tell, are loving what he's saying. And I actually wrote down verbatim what he said just to make sure I got it right. And so I'm just like really perplexed. Like I'm just some rando on the internet, on YouTube, just like saying stuff based on 5 minutes of this is what he said about the divine masculine and feminine. There wasn't, from what I could tell, there wasn't a lot more on this topic. So it's not. So it's, even though I got his words correctly, it's like such a small number. It's like a couple of minutes of conversation, right? And then here I am talking about it. So it could mean nothing, but I think about this a lot when I hear about the divine masculine and the divine feminine, because it's just it's like everyone talks about it like it's some universal experience, and it's not universal. It's said by a certain type of person, and that perspective, like it's like we all have to take as universal, and it's not. Like I think another problem with this is that like, why is it the divine feminine that's how can I treat others each day as a course corrective experience for all that I lack, or how can I rewrite my past by how I treat others around me, even if it's like I'm just like the divine masculine, whether or not of our reproductive systems, whether or not you have an external reproductive organ or an internal one, that is just a human trait. That's not divine masculine, nor is it divine feminine. It's just a human trait. It's a human notion that all people have. And it could be, I could call that a divine masculine trait. Like there's nothing about these things that tell me that this is a female trait or that tell me this is a masculine trait. So another point is that a lot of these traits, right, like the masculine traits are always very much more like action oriented, right? Like they're very like, focus and intention, and they're very like action oriented. They have direction, you know, and they've always been like the heroes, the strong, the one who got out of, you know, the one that other people rely on. And I'm just like, you know, a lot of the men that I know, you know, a lot are, you know, they don't have a lot of these traits. But to have that legacy in mythology and in divinity is a very strong legacy to have as a human, right? And the divine feminine having all these other traits about just, you know, kind of like, you know, even though you're treated poorly, treat other people in order to correct your past, like, you know, like forgiving and, you know, all these other things, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But these traits have also been maligned to a certain extent, like, you know, being like the action-oriented one, whatever, and being associated with that, the male part, and the divine feminine being the receptacle and the soft one. Like a lot of, like throughout cultures, like that divine feminine has been used, like those traits have been used against women in a lot of ways, and have been a lot maligned in men. So taking away the terminology of divine masculine and divine feminine, I think is just a lot more logical, because every single person has these traits, and there's no reason, and it doesn't mean that women biologically don't exist or men biologically don't exist. I consider myself a woman. I have no problem with that. But I don't need to be told that the characteristics within myself are representing the divine feminine, or I have to look to this God because of her divine feminine characteristics, or this male God because of his divine. It's just like, you know, it's just like they should both, regardless. I know that coming together, that's what creates union and progress and children. I understand that. But in terms of the divine, for me, you know, I've heard the thing about how Jesus represented the perfect divine feminine in a lot of ways. You know, but I don't hear that a lot. That's not the common story that I hear. So really, looking at divine figures, for me, should encompass characteristics that we as all humans strive to or can look up to, regardless of how, of their genitalia. Like goddesses, their power shouldn't just be in the fact that they just like, you know, they're just still and quiet and, you know, yeah, or only show power when they're angry like Kali. Power can be also very initiatory, that the divine feminine holds a lot of. So anyways, I don't know, so I don't know if this makes sense or not, and I really hope that it does. But let me know what you think, and I don't know if I'm going to keep this up. But yeah, let me know what you think. And again, I'm just like some rando on the internet talking about this stuff. Have I done any formalized study on this? No. But I'd like to hear any information that you have or what you have to say. Okay, thanks, bye.